Stand by. All right, go ahead and shoot it. Good.
What these men are building is not some backyard do-it-yourself project. No, these guys are building a sort of time machine.
We are creating a flying airplane, not just a kit plane. This is a scratch built. Every part has to be meticulously built.
And for good reason. For the plane they are building is this one. A 90-year-old Ford trimotor, affectionately known as the Tin Goose, historically one of the most important planes ever built, as it became, with its 3 engines and a metal skin, the nation's first airplane considered reliably safe.
This airplane changed the way the public perceived aviation.
It was this Henry Ford-inspired plane that was used in the first cross-country flights in the 1930s, promising coast-to-coast travel in just 48 hours. But today, in this museum hangar at Liberty Aviation in Port Clinton, a Tin Goose, first built in 1929, is being rebuilt. No small task indeed.
This is the largest amateur aircraft restoration in the history of aviation.
And the men engaged in this endeavor, while not as old as the plane they are restoring, do have some miles on their personal logbooks. And some have a history with the plane, like Jack DeVore, who grew up on North Bass Island and recalls when the Tin Goose flew regular flights between Port Clinton and the islands.
It was a workhorse, you know. It brought our mail, it brought our groceries, it brought everything that we needed to the island.
The familiar Tin Goose flew over 40 years to the islands and back. It was known as the world's shortest airline. This particular plane, first built in 1929, ended up in Mexico, then on to Cuba for a number of years, making flights out of Havana. By the 1940s, it was back in Ohio.
And flew right here in Port Clinton for Island Airways between 1946 and 1952.
It was later used by the Forest Service in Idaho for smoke jumpers fighting forest fires, but in 1958 it crashed. The recovered parts are the seeds from which this plane is now taking shape.
An amazing journey is right.
And a journey far from over, as it's estimated the project, already a decade in the making, may take another 5 years to complete. For the stalwart crew of volunteers, though, who convene here every week, it's worth it.
Seeing it come together, really. It's the fun of watching it grow, you know. It's every bit of it. Every day you come here, you think, boy, we didn't do much, and then all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, you look back and wow.
And for Doug Moore, who's fabricated many planes in his career as an airframe builder in the military, this one has become his life.
I wanted to retire, but when this plane is built and flying, then I can take a vacation.
But what provides the lift for this flight of fancy? Project volunteer Jody Broush.
We feel like if we don't do it, if our generation doesn't do it, it will be lost. It will be lost to time.
And for now, that vision is safe in the caring hands of this generation, who've made friendships as they've made progress in building it, in hopes that someday visitors to the area can experience this rare piece of the past. And someday hear the heavy rumble of the 3 engines as this time machine trundles down the runway and wings its way back into the skies once again. Lou Hebert, WTOL 11.